European Grand Prix of 1992, Formula One returns to Spain, to the new Catalonia circuit, where Nigel Mansell drove one of his greatest races ever last year. With 3 successive victories in South Africa, Mexico and Brazil, he leads the championship by a commanding 12 points in a Williams Renault that is very much the class of the field. But the competition has had 4 weeks to improve since Brazil. Can anyone break the Williams stranglehold here in Spain? When Nigel's not racing, he's golfing, relaxing away from the stress of the track, but as ever, aiming for success.
Woo! That's what you call a good scrabbling par.
I've had 2 or 3 different plans of action this last winter, and that is, plan 1 was to unfortunately move from Europe and go to Florida. Why? To get fit, race fit, mental fit, focused, to lose 16 pounds in weight, which is phenomenal.
1-6.
1-6, right? I'm lighter now than I was even at the weigh-in. You cannot do that in a winter. Any kind of winter climate, you can't do it. You can't train consistently. You don't eat the right foods. And you know, plan 2 then was to come out right from the word go and be quick and set the pace. And you know, I'm very pleased to say that we actually achieved that. Plan 3, I'll let you guess.
No prizes for that, but if Nigel wins his 4th successive Grand Prix today, he'll equal Senna's 1991 record and increase his 12-point championship lead. In the 4 weeks since Brazil, Senna's McLaren team, like the others, has been working and testing virtually non-stop to close the gap to Williams, and it's a big gap. For Benetton, that means a brand new, distinctive and very impressive car, which is already better than last year's. Although Germany's new superstar, young Michael Schumacher, wrote one of them off in a Friday accident from which he emerged unscathed. And it was Friday's times that decided the grid. For yesterday's weather was better for powerboats than cars. Jean Alesi was fastest, but finished in trouble. And sadly, Damon Hill, son of the great Graham, was beaten by the weather in his efforts to qualify at Brabham in place of Giovanna Amati. So it looks as though it's going to be a wet race as Nigel Mansell heads the grid for the 4th time in 4 races, ahead of the daring Schumacher for his first front row start. Senna 3rd on a track that flatters the McLaren, and Patrese 4th in the 2nd Williams. Then Capelli, his highest start yet for Ferrari, with Martin Brundle's Benetton 6th. Carl Wendlinger a superb 9th in the underfunded March, with Eric Comas an impressive 10th. Michele Alboreto 16th in the much improved footwork Mugen, and Mika Hakkinen 21st, and his Lotus teammate Johnny Herbert starts 26th. Schumacher creeping, and behind him, so was Jean Alesi, and I would not be at all surprised if there's a penalty for Schumacher. Patrese goes up into 2nd place, Alesi up into 3rd alongside Schumacher. So it is Mansell leading into turn 1. Patrese is 2nd, Alesi is 3rd, Schumacher is 4th. Berger is trying to go round the outside, and Senna is following Berger. And they are all away. Somebody's one of the Minardis. I think it was Morbidelli that went across the gravel trap there. But Nigel Mansell now on this damp circuit using wet treaded tyres leads Patrese, Alesi. That is Michael Schumacher in the new, very distinctive Benetton, followed by Martin Brundle. So Martin Brundle is in 5th position. 2 Benettons, 4th and 5th, ahead of both the McLarens. Berger is ahead of Ayrton Senna, and the race is starting to take shape already, with Nigel Mansell, who, remember, knows the conditions at this circuit at the moment better than anybody else, having experienced both types of tyre in Spain, away on the first lap. And he's protected by his teammate, but that doesn't mean to say that Riccardo Patrese won't be challenging for the lead, because he wants to win the race just as much as Nigel Mansell does. We're with Senna now, or we were. Well, already in the race, it looks as though the McLaren setup and the comparative lack of power from the Honda V12 engine is having to give best to the two Williams Renaults. Mansell and Patrese tested the new RS4 V10 Renault engine on the last 2 days, pronounced it better than the RS3, but they're not using that here, and Alesi is in third position. Williams Renault leads Mansell, Williams Renault second, Patrese, Ferrari is third, Alesi. In fourth position, Schumacher, Senna up to fifth, Brundle sixth, Berger seventh, and Ivan Capelli in the second Ferrari is in eighth position. This is lap 2. So now out of the Elf turn into the third gear left-hander, round the Curvone. And Schumacher having a look at Jean Alesi. And it hasn't been a terribly happy move from Tyrrell to Ferrari for Jean Alesi. You can see the gap there, half a second between him and Michael Schumacher. And Martin Brundle is off, and he's out again for the fourth time in 4 races since he joined Benetton. He's going to retire because he is beached on the curb there. The unfortunate Martin Brundle, who started well from 6th on the grid, again retires from the Grand Prix.
Yes, and that's sad to see, but I'm afraid it's all proving a little bit too much for Martin this year with Schumacher in the team. He's been too fast for him all the time, and the pressure seems to have produced mistakes from Brundle, and if anything, he's been overdriving.
We're with Senna, and ahead of Ayrton Senna is the distinctive Benetton B192, and in its first race, designed by... Oh, and now, watch the way Senna is having to correct all the time. And if you get a cockpit shot from the Williams Renault of either Mansell or Patrese, you will see that they are having a much easier time of controlling their cars than the two McLaren pilots.
And Patrese is starting to catch Mansell at the moment. He's just put up another fastest lap, which supersedes his own fastest lap. Well, of course, the track's drying out, times are coming down. But Riccardo Patrese, and you see how he's been sliding current, and Schumacher is inside Jean Alesi, and Alesi gave him very little room indeed. And if there'd been a coming together there, you'd have to have said that was down to Alesi. He got a lot of stick of criticism from Martin Brundle after their coming together in Brazil. And now we get a view from Senna's car. And Alesi, oh dear, their wheels were actually interlocked there, but didn't make contact. And really, I think Alesi, here we see it yet again, but and Berger took advantage of that to get around Senna, by the look of it. So a bit of a schmozzle there.
So there's Schumacher third, Alesi fourth, Senna fifth, Berger sixth, and Capelli seventh now together. Nigel Mansell controlling it from the front. Fastest lap, he has responded to the previous fastest lap of his teammate Riccardo Patrese with a lap 0.6 of a second faster than the Italian. So it would look as though Nigel Mansell here has got plenty in reserve. Meantime, Senna. And look at the gap between Senna in fourth place and Schumacher, fifth Alesi, sixth Berger, seventh Ivan Capelli, and I think Ivan Capelli is a man to watch because the Italian, we're back with Ayrton Senna now, looking, I think, at that battle for the change.
Coming to pass Alesi here and getting inside him on the straight, on the main straight as they head for turn 1. Now, for the purposes of enjoying this race, I suggest that for the time being we pretend that, we won't keep an eye on it for you, but we pretend that the Williamses aren't in it, because had they not been, we've got a very good race for what would otherwise be the lead. But certainly the race for third place is raging at the moment. Schumacher holding a 3-second advantage over Senna, but stretching right to the limit to do so. Senna chasing hard, and Alesi, Berger and Capelli all queuing up behind. So there are the leaders. Mansell still holding on to his lead, and he's opening it out again. Looks pretty comfortable, seems to be able to turn it on at will over Patrese at the moment. The lead now over 3 seconds. New fastest lap of the race for Mansell, down to 1 minute 42. And we are certainly getting into slick, tight conditions now.
Well, James and I are in the cloistered calm of an enclosed commentary box. It looks to me as though the road is drying out, but what does Jonathan Palmer think? He's in the open.
Well, it does seem, Murray, that the rain does continue to fall. It's got a little bit lighter, but nevertheless it's still very much there. And I wouldn't say that it's going to get too much quicker, sufficiently rapidly to be on slicks in the next few laps anyway.
This is a replay of Gerhard Berger having a look to try and take the 5th place from the French Sicilian, which he failed to do.
And a terrific battle those two are having.
And that's Berger. Spin for Jean Alesi. Well, he's been spinning frantically all through practice, and he's carrying it on in the race. He was spinning on Friday, spinning on Saturday. He's down a place now. This is a replay from Gerhard Berger's point of view as he goes inside the Ferrari, as Alesi loses it.
Yes, I'm not sure that there wasn't some contact there with Berger, who got inside, and I think one has to say, looking at it, that was 2 hard chargers charging into each other, albeit gently in these conditions. And we'll see if Alesi has been able to continue without further drama.
We're on lap 14. You know the lead positions. Here they are, and with confirmation of the others. Nigel Mansell, race leader, you're watching. Patrese is 2nd, Schumacher is 3rd, Senna is 4th, Berger is in 5th position, Capelli is 6th, Jean Alesi is in 7th place, Eric Comas, excellent in the Ligier, is in 8th place, ahead of the Tyrrell driver Olivier Griard, with Gabriele Tarquini in the Fonmetal 10th. Pierluigi Martini is in 11th place, JJ Leto in the Dallara is 12th. That is Johnny Herbert, who has spun out of the race, out of the car. Another retirement. Andrea De Cesaris is out. Martin Brundle is out.
Martin, it looked as if you had a problem. We saw you drop back. We then saw you running again, but then having a spin. Tell us what happened.
Oh, we had the clutch problem, Jonathan. In the warm-up, the clutch went away. We thought we'd fix it going to the line. I had the same problem again. We just bled it. That's all you can do on the line. But unfortunately, on lap 2, I lost the clutch pedal completely, which makes it very difficult to down change. I slid wide earlier on and lost 3 places. I was regaining one of those with Comas, and he tried to come back at me on the inside of turn 3, understeered into my right rear tyre, and spun off. I kept the engine running, but unfortunately it's stranded on a small curb, and the rear wheels can't get good traction, and it's just sitting there beached basically.
A really great shame, Martin. You really are having some lousy luck at the moment, and it can only surely get better in the near future.
Jonathan Palmer talking to the unfortunate Martin Brundle, who has now retired his Benetton from all the first 4 races. Well, now we are on lap 18, and Nigel Mansell has lapped everybody up to 17th place. Aguri Suzuki already in the race. And it really does look to me as, yes, you see, both Senna and Berger and Capelli are getting a real slide on as they complete the lap. You come downhill at about 130 miles an hour, accelerating to 150 into that last right-hander in the straight, and it is slippery there.
That's because their tyres have had it, and that is the problem. The track has got more grip on it, the tyres have overheated, and I'm very surprised that nobody has yet come in for a change of tyres onto slicks, unless they're worrying about the rain continuing. The problem is, of course, the sky looks to be very much unchanged, and in fact, Sir Broly's going up now, and one can understand, in a way, the reticence of drivers to do anything when the weather looks so uncertain. So here's Jonathan on the subject of the conditions.
Well, it's not so much uncertain, James, as just being persistently wet, persistently raining. You know, the rain has let up a little bit, but now it's coming down quite solidly, and I really don't see that they can run on slick tyres. I think they've got to soldier on the wet.
And there's a Williams off, and it looks like Patrese getting out of his car, and that is Riccardo Patrese.
But why? Are we going to see a replay? He's just on the grass. Well, here he is. He was coming up. Well, he's lost. Now, this is underlining everything that James has been saying earlier on, as Patrase's right front hits the concrete wall and he proceeds at speed backwards. He'll be perfectly all right, but it would have been a nasty clonk. Now, this confirms what James was saying about the heavily treaded wet tyres, which have taken a pounding in the drier conditions earlier on and have worn down, and Patrese, lining up to get through and lap somebody ahead of him, just lost it and went into the wall. So now Schumacher is up into second position in the Benetton B192.
Oh dear.
Mauricio Gugelmin, what a dreadful season this is turning out to be for the Jordan team, because Mauricio Gugelmin, who's obviously hit something, probably, and I'm only guessing, because his tyres are worn. He's almost at the pit lane entrance as he spins off there, as he was being lapped by the two McLarens, one of them driven, ironically enough, by his great friend Ayrton Senna.
We watch from Berger's car, watching Senna in front of him, and Berger sawing away at the wheel. These cars are extremely nervous in these conditions. Believe me, 700 horsepower is a lot of power, even with all that downforce and those great big sticky grooved wet weather tyres. Remember, the car only weighs 500 kilos, and Mansell still throwing up water. So from his point of view, he'll be quite happy that the track is most definitely wet, in that he doesn't have to worry about decisions. And there's Gugelmin walking in.
Well, Maurizio, this must be a miserable moment for you. We know that everyone's been wanting to talk to you. Was that just a simple mistake? Clearly the track's getting very slippery and your tyres are losing their best form. I'm sure that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Basically, the problem is we started with the circuit a little bit drier, which took the best out of the tyres, and now it's raining a little bit more, and it's just not enough water. The surface is just very greasy. It's like the tire is coming off from the tarmac, and it's just running on oil, basically, no grip at all.
Do you think the teams will need to stop any more for further wet tyres, or will they keep going on this one set for the whole race?
I think if the rain carries on like this, you can go all the distance. But if it stops raining, I think they may have to replace rear tyres at least.
Maurizio, thanks for your time.
Senna, right in the middle. The two McLaren sides, and Berger has got past Senna in the traffic. Senna was having a go to get back at him there. Now, we didn't see how that came about, but in the confusion of all the traffic, Gerhard Berger has put one over Ayrton Senna, as can so easily happen, because it all gets very unpredictable. And Senna is not taking it lightly. He's challenging all the way. We saw him when we first picked up on that. He was challenging again at the next corner. But they would be well advised not to battle each other too much for the moment, while Schumacher is so much in sight. But knuckle under and give chase to Schumacher. Just get through the traffic first.
In order to do which, they've got to pass Pierluigi Martini in the Dallara Ferrari, and Berger does so. Now, is Martini going to move across and get in between Berger and Senna? But he's holding the inside line as Mansell goes through to complete his 31st lap out of 65, and Senna has taken the position, but neither of them have caught and passed Martini, and the Dallara is using the 1992 specification V12 Ferrari engine, and that's Eric Comas. What's happened to Comas in the Ligier, who's slipping and sliding?
And now we're seeing Comas, his spin. He clearly had a spin then when we picked up on him, and well, he was lucky to get going again from there, but he kept the engine running. You see, had the car in first gear straight away and back on the track, and that didn't do anything to help the McLaren cause, but they got through quite clearly. And the net result of the McLaren infighting and the fun and games in the traffic is that Senna and Berger have dropped back. Schumacher has pulled away to over 6 seconds on them now, and that will help him as Eric Comas goes into the pits.
having, of course, lost his 7th position to Gabriele Tarquini in the Fondmetal. And it's not beyond reason that somebody's going to drop out in the top 6, in which case we could have a Fondmetal in the points, and that would be a terrific achievement for this gallant little Italian team that's tried so hard. Mansell coming through to complete another lap.
And you saw then that Nigel Mansell bothered to move over to the right-hand side of the straight, which is not the normal line, which Schumacher is not doing, and that was to run the tyres into the wetter part of the circuit when he's not in the corner, to keep them cool, to stop, to try and slow down the deterioration of the rubber. And that is a lazy into the pits, and I suspect this may be for tyres. It is indeed for a fresh set of wets to see if he can find more grip. Now, it will be interesting to see if Lazy can get a real quantum advantage out of that. That was a good quick tyre change by Ferrari.
And he hasn't lost his place, because Tarquini in 7th position is a long, long way behind. Of course, he's been lapped by Nigel Mansell. Comas has just gone through, having made his tyre change. And on lap 34 out of 65, it is Mansell leading by 15 seconds from Michael Schumacher. 7 seconds ahead of Senna, who is now 4 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, who's dropped back. Capelli is in 5th position, and he's now 24 seconds ahead of Alesi, who has changed tyres.
Absolutely, and we'll keep an eye on that gap. And that was a very, very good tyre stop by Ferrari, because to lose only some 20 seconds on the road, including changing the tyres, is very good indeed. Because remember, the majority of time lost in a tyre stop is the decelerating and accelerating time and threading one's way through the pit lane.
That is Bertrand Gachot out of the Spanish Grand Prix in his Larousse. It may be Ken Tyrrell's birthday, but it's not a very happy one from the racing point of view. Andrea de Cesaris retired early on, round about lap 4. Olivier Griard is out now, so both the Tyrrell Ilmores have retired. And the Benetton B192 is in its first race, and behind you can see Ayrton Senna, who's cutting the time down. He's lapping a second faster than Schumacher, and the gap between the McLaren there in 3rd place and the Benetton in front is now down to 5.2 seconds.
Yes, he's been chipping away for a few laps now. It was 8 seconds, and Senna is now starting to put pressure on Schumacher. Whee! And a big slide then from the Ferrari. And surprise, surprise, that's a lazy. And I think that may be some frustration with Mika Hakkinen, who's in front of him, because Alesi is a man in a hurry, and there he is. Gave it a little bit too much welly there, but he held it well. He's got tremendous car control, Jean Alesi, and he's still behind the Lotus. And we have news of Riccardo Patrese.
Well, it seems that Alesi wasn't the only one who's being frustrated by Hakkinen, James, because Riccardo was lapping and he was coming across Hakkinen. There was some confusion of line, and in that Riccardo went off, which I think just underlines the delicate knife edge that these guys are racing when you've got 700 plus horsepower and just half a ton on these treacherous conditions.
Yes, I'm a bit mystified about the Alesi situation. He's still not ahead of Mika Hakkinen, who's clearly occupying the line that Alesi wants to be on.
And finally they've come together, and that was a frustration from Alesi, I'm sure. But one of the problems is, I think, that the Ferrari is sufficiently lacking in power, that and the Ford engine in the Lotus is a good one, that Hakkinen is pretty quick down the straights. And well, we didn't see how that coming together. Here now we see Alesi going down the inside, and he would have slid a bit wide, and Hakkinen no doubt will blame him, but certainly Hakkinen was being uncooperative. And up front, Ayrton Senna is now under 4 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, and Senna, the world champion, going for the lower placings, but still giving it the full commitment, everything he's got.
Now look for Ayrton Senna, there he is, and Schumacher is 12.8 seconds behind and is catching Mansell. Senna is 4 seconds behind, and Schumacher has now speeded up. His previous lap was faster than that of Senna, and in turn Gerhard Berger is lapping faster than Senna. So things are getting interesting at the front. But Mansell is still securely holding that lead on this, the 43rd lap out of 65.
And the rain's coming down harder again. You can probably see the spray from the tyres. There's more spray. And there's a view from Senna's car, and that's the spray from Schumacher through which he's having to drive. At the same time, the Schumacher seems to be finding a little bit more grip on the wetter track, and behind them and the battle for second place, the tyre change that Alesi had, despite being delayed with his dramas with Mika Häkkinen, he is now on Capelli's tail and will be looking for a way past his teammate, and the fresher wet tyres should certainly help him in that.
I remind you that the Ferraris have got a highly sophisticated traction control device, and John Alesi was pushing very, very hard indeed in yesterday's wet practice. He's coming up to go through and take 5th position now from Ivan Capelli. He's lapping 3 seconds, no, 2.5 seconds faster than his teammate on his new tyres, Alesi, and he was pushing very, very hard in yesterday's appallingly wet conditions, deliberately to find what the limits were of the Ferrari, which has been so much improved since Brazil. He found them several times by going off. Here's a replay of John Alesi pulling out of the slipstream of his teammate Ivan Capelli's Ferrari, going through into 5th position, and John Alesi is lapping now in 1 minute 45.8, which is not very much quicker than, in fact, slower than some of the men who are in front of him, including Schumacher, including Mansell, excluding Ayrton Senna, and Senna now is 5 seconds behind Schumacher. The German has responded. He's going half a second a lap quicker than the Brazilian, and I find it very hard to find the right words to express my admiration for 23-year-old Michael Schumacher. Coming up to Mika Häkkinen, who got in Alesi's way, Alesi will say, who got in Patrese way, Patrese said. Now, is he going to let Schumacher through? Yes, he is. No balking there. Schumacher holding his speed, just moving over a bit. And look at the spray coming up from those tyres. It is very, very wet on the Catalunya circuit. Mansell leads Schumacher now by only 7 seconds. The German is starting to catch Nigel Mansell. In 3rd place, Ayrton Senna, and he is 5 seconds behind Schumacher, who is the fastest man of the top 3 at the present moment, not by very much. And Gerhard Berger is 10 seconds behind Senna in 4th position. And look at Senna, really losing it there. That's how tough it is.
Yes, that's because the rain is really tipping down now. You can see the track is really flooded, and that would explain why Mansell has slowed down at the front. And Schumacher, this really is Schumacher's big chance, and Schumacher must be praying that the race won't be stopped. And now replay here of Senna getting very wobbly and crossed up, and really that was very well held by Senna, because the car is almost floating on that sort of quantity of water.
Things really are very tricky indeed out there, I think, now. The rain is really throwing it down, but also bear in mind that those wet tyres, which were 50% worn, for those who hadn't changed just about 15 laps ago, now must be pretty worn indeed, and a lot of standing water, and I think we're going to see a fair amount of aquaplaning, which is going to result in that kind of Senna drama.
Now, Schumacher is catching Nigel Mansell, 15 laps to go. There's Mansell, there is Schumacher, 1st and 2nd. Now look for Ayrton Senna. Yes, you just saw the Brazilian approaching the right-hander.
And I think in the circumstances, Senna has cried enough in terms of trying to stay with Schumacher. He may feel his tyres have done too much, and he certainly would like to pick up the points, but Senna has dropped back. He's now nearly 7 seconds adrift of Schumacher. Schumacher still everything to play for. Mansell having to defend, another threat for the first time this season, and this is a test indeed for Nigel Mansell. The conditions are horrible, and one that he doesn't want to be put to, and Mansell has put in a quick one, and Mansell looks as if Mansell has indeed kept something in hand. He has looked after his tyres, and he has responded to Michael Schumacher. There is Senna going off, and that was Ayrton Senna spinning the engine. He's kept it all going. Has he kept his engine running? Yes, he has. And as one would expect. And Ayrton Senna probably hasn't lost a place. No, he had some half a minute on Gerhard Berger. So there, a replay of Senna just caught out by the puddles. And I think when a driver of the caliber of Ayrton Senna does that, and remember, he is not really driving under great pressure, although he's still chasing Schumacher. It just demonstrates how treacherous the conditions are. And Senna allowed the car to run then, didn't hit the brakes, and that took it out of the sand trap, and that was clever driving.
We're now on lap 58 out of 65. You are looking down on Nigel Mansell, the potential victor. He's got so much of a lead now, 13.7 seconds over Schumacher, who got to within some 4 seconds of Nigel Mansell at one point, only for the Englishman to respond. And I suspect that his tyres are in a better condition than those of anybody behind him, except Sean Lacey.
Less than that, looks like Eric Comas walking back. And so Comas' race has come to a premature end. But in the meantime, Alesi has got a lot of reason to hurry, because he's now only 3 seconds behind Gerhard Berger. He's hauled in an enormous distance, courtesy of having the pressure tyres on for the conditions. And there is the battle. There is Berger ahead of Alesi. And Alesi now at this stage, with some 6 or 7 laps to go, is favourite to snatch 4th place from Gerhard Berger.
I don't think he'll get 3rd position from Ayrton Senna. He's lapping faster than Senna, but not fast enough to close the gap. And anyway, he's still got to get past Gerhard Berger, and that won't necessarily be easy. Now, here they are. Berger in 4th place. Alesi in 5th position. Alesi in 4th position. Gerhard Berger gives way. He knows exactly what the score is. He knows what he can do in his car. He knows he's driving as fast as he possibly can in the conditions on his worn tyres. Senna out of the Spanish Grand Prix, and that has made his World Championship chances more than fraught, because there's going to be no points for the Brazilian. We didn't see what happened. So Ayrton Senna, the world champion, having finished now here's a replay coming up of some kind. It's on car camera, and you can see that he slid off. That looked like the same sort of thing that happened to Riccardo Patrese.
And there is Mansell, and for him, no dramas. He's been able, courtesy of the superior Williams chassis, to keep his tyres in better shape than the others, all short of Alesi, who made the switch.
Now there is less than 3 miles between him and the checkered flag, seeing it first for the 4th race in succession, having won in South Africa, having won in Mexico, having brilliantly won in Brazil, and he has driven an absolutely copybook race. He's dominated it all the way. When anybody has challenged him, he has fought back. Michael Schumacher there, taking Christian Fittipaldi and lapping him, is going to finish higher than he's ever finished in any of his previous 9 Grand Prix. Another magnificent achievement. But it means to say that when Mansell sees that checkered flag, which he has yet to do, he will have increased his World Championship point to 40, and he will have increased his lead over everybody else quite dramatically. It means to say, too, that with Senna out of the race, Williams are going to be increasing their Constructors' Championship lead. So only a few corners now to go for Nigel Mansell. People ask all the time, is this his World Championship year, having finished 2nd in the World Championship 3 times? Well, I don't know whether it is or not. There's a long way to go. There are 16 Grand Prix, and this is only the 4th. But Mansell has not been...
only injury could stop Mansell now. He really has the situation well under control. Patrese has has hurt his chances, but at least we saw a spirited drive for Patrese while it lasted, and Mansell coming up last corner.
So down the hill at some 150 miles an hour into that last right-hander, and he takes the checkered flag to win his 4th successive Grand Prix for another 10 points. Michael Schumacher, a brilliant second. Jean Alesi in 3rd place in the Ferrari, ahead of Gerhard Berger's McLaren. Then a superb 5th place for Michele Alboretto's footwork Mugen. And for the first time in the points for a long time, Pierluigi Martini, Dallara Ferrari. And those last 2 places changed because Ivan Capelli disappeared on the last lap.
Well, what I couldn't believe was 2/3 of the way through the race, I was driving as hard as I could, and this guy here was catching me by about 2 seconds a lap, and this was a little bit disconcerting, and I was pushing as hard as I could, and there was nothing I could do. I couldn't respond. I caught a little bit of traffic, and with the conditions you had to be very careful how to overtake, because you couldn't blame the driver in front because he could see nothing behind, and it was sometimes very difficult to overtake, but an incredible race.
I started a bit early, and still the red light was on, and I need to stop again. And in the moment I was on the brake and I stopped the car, the green light came on, and the circuit was quite slippery in this situation. Didn't get any grip, but anyway, I was quite surprised that I still was 4th after this bad start, and I think it wasn't so bad.
I think for Ferrari, for Imola race, it was very important to finish on the podium, because all the tifosi in Italy are following Ferrari. Also, of course, all the other drivers, and especially Nigel, because he's very popular in Italy. But I think it's very, very important what we did, Ferrari and myself, today.
Victory in Spain for Nigel Mansell's Williams Renault, with Michael Schumacher 2nd in the Benetton Ford. Jean Alesi 3rd in the Ferrari, Gerhard Berger 4th, Michele Alboretto a magnificent 5th, and Pierluigi Martini 6th. Now that means to say that Nigel Mansell now leads his teammate Riccardo Patrese in the Drivers' Championship by 22 points, with Schumacher only 1 point behind Patrese, Berger 4th, Alesi 5th, and Senna down to 6th place, 36 points behind Mansell. Williams lead the Constructors' Championship by 41 points from Benetton, McLaren only 12 points, 3rd position, and Ferrari 4th. And in 2 weeks' time, it's to Italy,